everyone. Yes, indeed. My name is Edwin Smith. I'm the editor-in-chief of Spears Magazine, and what a privilege and a pleasure it is to be here at Abu Dhabi Finance Week. Lovely to see you all. I'm delighted to say that I'm joined today by a woman at the helm of a family business success story. It began in Bahrain in 1973 as a retailer for children's and baby wear. Today, fresh from its 50th anniversary celebrations, the group is in rude health with 22 brands, 53,000 employees, 2,200 stores across 17 countries, and annual revenues of $7 billion. Please welcome everyone, Ranuka Jogtani, chairwoman of Landmark Group.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming in to listen.
Now, Ranuka, today you're running this multi-billion-dollar international family business, but your career trajectory has been quite unique. I think you were once a German teacher. Can you give us a sense of your extraordinary journey?
So I really went into business at the age of 38. So married with 3 kids, and I'm not from a business family. My father was in the army. The only work I had done was before marriage, where I had taught for 5 years. So this was completely new to me. And I think if I had known that I would go in so deep, I would never have started. So sometimes actually just trusting your instinct to just start is what really works. And it made a difference for me, So I enjoyed what I did, and so it continued, and then one thing followed another. But at 38, I opened the fashion business in the group, Splash. I had never been in fashion, I'd never been in retail. But I was married to a man who was a retailer, and you realize that you imbibe a lot along the way. You imbibe what it really means to understand product and build a business. And I think it was also the culture we had of doing everything from scratch and getting involved in anything which taught me my business. So I did that. I only really stepped into a central role about 12 years back, and about 10 years back into what would be a CEO and chair role for the group. So it's been, considering the 50 years, I started later, but it's been quite an eventful and very kind of intense journey to that. And now I'm in the next phase of transition of saying, so I moved out of a CEO role completely into a chair role, still very much an executive chair role, but then transitioning out, hopefully in the next few years, more completely out of the day-to-day business.
Very good, and we'll come to that a little bit later in the conversation, but can you just give us a sense of those earlier steps into the business? You say it started gradually, and then before you knew it developed a long way, but can you tell us how it began and how you got a taste for this?
I think it began really with understanding and saying, it really started with Mickey saying, I think you should do young fashion. And I said, but I don't know young fashion. He said, well, learn it. And
Mickey's your late husband, who's the founder of
my husband, yes. So his way of my learning it was, at that time, he used to travel a lot, and he was involved in the baby shop. So I've traveled with him, but he never really walked anything with me. I was left saying, I'll meet you in the evening for dinner. You're on your own. But being on your own, you learn. You walk every market you walked, and I did everything from Asia to Europe to the US. I walked every market to really understand what fashion is about. So I had to learn myself a lot. And I think doing that, it really taught me what I wanted. I think I was also very lucky that we started at a time where life was kind, so it allowed you your mistakes, but it allowed you to grow. So it's a combination.
And have you reflected, perhaps, as your own children have been coming into the business, the degree to which the suitability for such a role is innate or learned or dependent on personality? When you're thinking about yourself, was it something that was in you that was uncovered, or did you develop it as you went along?
I don't think it was in me. I think I didn't know what was in me, and maybe thank God for it, because if I had views of what will work for me, what won't, I don't think I would have done what I did. It was because I didn't know what I wanted to do that I said, okay, whatever there is, I will do. And that determination to do it, and then if I'm to do it well, I think persevered, and it made me persevere in moving on and doing more and more. And I mean, completely different to the Middle East was India, and I was the one responsible to for India from the start for the family. And just because you're Indian, it doesn't mean that you understand India. You don't really. It's a very different ball game. But that same kind of way of saying, I will learn and I will succeed and I need to succeed is what drives you.
Okay. And in terms of operating the business, are there different things now at this stage of its development, when it's a vast company over, was it 17 different countries? Are there different things that make it successful now to the ones that made it successful at the start? What's most important now?
I think it depends on the life cycle of each business, because we run many businesses. So if you have businesses which are much older, they would have different needs and a different part of the life cycle. So what you would look there, it would be very different to a fairly new business you set up. So a new business today may not be so different to a new business 30 years back, but a mature business today is very different to a startup of today. And I think so. You've got to fine tune it to business. You can't, and to the leader who runs the business, because within a business, every leader is a different person. And I've learned one thing, that I have to adapt to that rather than expecting the leader to say, I'm working for Landmark and therefore I will just be this kind of leader. It doesn't work. He has his personality and he has to do what works for him. So learning to work with different people sometimes is the biggest challenge, but it's also the biggest reward.
Fantastic. And yes, different personalities play, of course, but at the same time, there is quite a clear through line in the history of the business in Landmark Group, and that's the company culture. And in many ways, that seems to be a torch that's still carried, one that was first lit by your late husband. And you have lots of ways in which you think about culture. And there's an interesting acronym I'd like to talk about, if we can. I lead. Can you talk us through that?
So Mickey's way of starting the business was starting it each, so he called it a key man he took for each business, and he gave him his vision, but then got him to really run with it. The person had a small share in it, but that person developed it. And so he always had somebody who was this entrepreneur who had a strong sense of ownership. But he was also very clear that it was never about one man alone. So the first thing which Mickey told me when I entered the business, and this was when I opened my first store in Sharjah, was very simply, never hold the keys in your hand. And for him, that really meant that you have to know how to work with people and to let them run the business they run. And I think that makes a huge difference. So that, I think, was the foundation. And if we are to continue the next 50 years, I think that is actually fundamental to our business, and that entrepreneurship will help us grow. with that, we look to say, what is it really about? And when you look at I lead, so lead stands for listen. And this for us was listening to the customer, to really understanding the opportunity, what the customer wants, how we react to it, empowering people and empowering the team to take that forward. And then adapting. So adapting wasn't just adapting that particular concept or the range or something to it, but also being adaptable enough that if something doesn't work, you just come out of it. So you have to know, and this he did very well. I'm not good at it. So to really say that, let it go, and he knew how fast to let go so that you deliver, which is the D. The I is integrity. And that was a fundamental part of it, to say that fundamental to be the business has to be how we work. So that I think we've tried in every way to see that we keep it. But I think that has been that fundamental belief, especially when you build your own brands, has really what has helped us get where we are today.
Fantastic. And 2/3 of the managers within the business are promoted from within, as I understand. So you have this pipeline of talent, you have internal promotions, you have people being empowered to take responsibility for their own part of the business. But at the same time, a really important factor here is that it's a family business. Can you talk a little bit how you've involved the next generation of your family in the company?
So the business has been always a family business, but has had professionals, and professionals who worked with us built businesses. So it's a family business which has always had both sides of it. When you have kids, you don't really get up one day and strategize saying, today I will strategize how my children will join the business. I wish one could do that. As a mother, you can't do it. And you have, every person is individual. So my 3 children are very individual. And each one would be in the business for a very different reason. But I think amazingly with the same passion for it. And I think it's their passion which has kept them there. Their passion, which I think a lot they get from both their parents, because we are both retailers. And I think you grow up with that. You don't realize how much it becomes a part of you. But I think that is really what has made them join. It wasn't something which was by design. I definitely nurtured it, worked on it, but it's actually first thanks to them. If you really look at it, what would take the children forward would really be their ability to work with others and their ability to work with each other. And I think that is really what would be.
Absolutely. We heard Ali Sajwani of Damac sit on the stage earlier and say the biggest threat to family businesses is when there is that lack of alignment. And so getting the next generation to work with one another, are you lucky enough that just happens naturally, organically, or are there ways in which you encourage it?
No, you have to encourage it, and they have to actually actively work on it. And they have to, it doesn't happen by itself, because we all get very busy. We may have the intent, but you have to actually make time for it, work on it, and consciously spend time to build that alignment with each other and with each business. Because it's also very important when you run a family business to know your leaders and to have that collaboration and association and communication with your leaders. It's not just with each other, so it's much wider.
Very good. And to mark the 50th anniversary of the group, there was a video that I've seen in which some of your children are interviewed and they speak extremely well about what they're doing. The thing I was really struck by is their ambition. They're very clear that they have huge ambition for growth, which I'm sure all of the 53,000 members of the group do, and you share as well. Can you talk a little bit to round things off about what's next for Landmark Group?
I think what's next for us, so clearly we have a strategy to grow in retail. We are growing our retail, one of our recent chains is grocery. We are growing that. We are growing in the other parts of it. And I think what's very important for us is to grow our online business. But I think we are at the stage where we are also saying that it is about growth, bring growth about for people. It doesn't always have to be in retail. I think we're comfortable with retail. We are comfortable with consumer facing, and we'd always land up doing a lot there. But I think the advantage of having possibly three should finally be that each one can find an opportunity to bring different things to the table and to encourage growth and to grow the people within the business who I think would join us for that, the challenge of learning, of growing is really what excites them.
Absolutely, I'm sure it would. We're just about out of time, so ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Renuka Jyotiani, Chairwoman of Landmark Group. Thank you.
Thank you.